Welcome back to Kelly Rene Every Day, where we're looking at a project that we are creating a 4-part series for that will teach you how to crochet while making this very simple but very nice, very useful cotton washcloth. Now, we are at a point where we learned how to do the slip knot in part 1. Now, in part 2, we are going to be setting up and creating our base chain, which will then get us to the point where we'll be able to add stitches, the single crochet and the double crochet. But first, this video is going to be dedicated to the chain stitch. Now, the chain stitch is really important. I know it's not easy to see here, but the chain stitch is going to set the width of our work. We start every one of our projects, number 1, with a slip knot and with a series of chains. So the chain stitch is fundamental, and it's going to be the very first thing that we do in terms of stitches when we're creating a project. So we are going to practice doing the chain stitch. So I am going to start by putting my yarn on my needle using the slip knot. So we're going to take a length of yarn, wrap it around 1.5 times, pull up a little loop here, and then what we're going to do is put our crochet hook through, and then we're going to pull and snug it up with our tail. Now that we have this on here, we need to hold everything. Now, this is where it takes a little bit of practice, and it's going to feel a little awkward at first, but I want to walk you through setting yourself up so that we can then begin our chains. So we've got our yarn on our hook. We're going to hold our hook with our thumb and our index finger, just like we're cutting with a knife. And what that's going to do is that's going to position this hook towards us, okay? Now, our tail is going to be off to the side here. We're not going to deal with that. That's just going to be a tail on our work, and we'll weave that in at the very end. But now what we're going to do is we're going to use our other hand to hold the yarn. Now, make sure that you take some yarn off of your ball so that you have it available and that it's just kind of freely here. And we'll occasionally continue to do that. But now your hand is going to set the tension for the yarn as we start to use it and weave it. So I'm going to take my yarn, I'm going to put it over, I'm going to put my finger up, and I'm going to wind it around once. Okay? Then what I'm going to do, you'll notice that these bottom fingers kind of tipped in. These bottom 2 are going to stay down, but my middle finger is going to go on the back side of the loop that I have on my hook. My thumb is going to come in the front. Okay, so let's try that again. I'm going to put my work over the top. I'm going to get my index finger. I'm going to wrap around. Okay, and then I'm going to curl the bottom 2 fingers over, bring my middle finger up in back of my hook, and then my thumb is going to come up into the front. Okay, and this is how I am going to hold my work. Now, what this is going to do is as I pull the yarn through, it is going to wind up around, and it's going to gradually come off of that ball. That's why we want to have some yarn kind of off the ball here, but then this actually sets kind of the even what we call tension for that yarn to come in. Okay, if we would just go like this and try to gather it in and try to pull it, we would have problems. We wouldn't have nice even stitches. Now, there are a number of different ways to hold your yarn, and I use a way that's very traditional. I learned from my grandmother many years ago, so I always gravitate towards this. When you watch other people on YouTube demonstrating, you're going to see other ways of doing it. And I encourage you to kind of explore and see maybe what other methods might work well. So how you do this, like I said, is I'm going to teach you the way that I do it. There are other variations, but all of them work well, and it's just a matter of personal preference. So again, I'm going to take my work, I'm going to put it over my palm, I'm going to put my index finger up, I'm going to wrap around, okay? And I'm going to be about this far away from my needle, okay? I'm going to take these 2 fingers at the bottom and kind of curl them over, and then I'm going to take my middle finger in the back and my thumb in the front, okay? Now, I'm set up to take my first like my first chain and create it. So we're going to create a series of chains here. Now, what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to just walk you through how to do it. So I would just watch me for a second, because I'm going to show you what the chain stitch looks like and how we do it. And then what we'll do is I'll stop. I'll give you a chance to kind of catch up with me, and then we'll do it together. So I'm going to wrap this around, and the chain stitch is going to involve a couple different steps. I'm going to start with my needle in this position, and my needle is what's going to go underneath. We're going to what we call yarn over, okay? And I'm going to put my needle underneath. My hook then is going to be kind of tipped back. But then I'm going to, what I want to do is I want to pull this through this loop right here that's on my hook. So what I'm going to do is as I pull this in, I'm also going to turn it down. And as I turn it down, that allows me to pull it through that loop. Okay. Now, if I leave this in the upward position, for instance, I'm going to kind of do this over. If I leave this in the upward position and I pull through and I try to pull like this, it's going to get caught there, or I'm going to have to, so I eventually end up turning it over. So that's why when I do the chain and I yarn over, that's what I'm going to pull it underneath. I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to twist this down as I go, and then I'm going to pull it through that loop. Okay. Now this is the next loop. So I need to pull that loop down onto the larger part of the barrel, because now this sets the size of that loop. Now I'm going to go back, I'm going to yarn over, okay, and I'm going to twist, and I'm going to pull down and through. And I'm always kind of pushing up, a little bit. Now that loop is always set by the size of my needle. Now I need to pull this back on so it gets to be the size of that needle. If I try to go in and yarn over when it's in that small area there, it's never going to come through. It's going to be too tight, okay? So I need to always make sure that I bring it back through my loop. So I'm going to do it again, yarn over, and I'm going to pull through. Now I'm using my 2 fingers here to kind of hold this in place as I pull that through. And so my finger and my middle finger and my thumb always kind of creep up along with these stitches. So I'm going to show you some more. So yarn over, rotate, pull through. Yarn over, rotate, pull through. And then again, I'm sneaking it back up. Notice I put this finger on the loop to hold it in place, and I sneak my fingers up. Yarn over, rotate, pull through. Finger on, sneak up, yarn over, rotate, pull through. Okay. Now the yarn is coming off pretty evenly for me, because at the bottom here, I'm kind of holding it so that it doesn't, if I would be just like this, I would be going like this yarn would be very loosey goosey. Okay. So by having it around my finger here, and then also kind of holding it here, and it's kind of giving a little tension to it. So I have to pull it through so that this stays kind of taut. Okay. Pull through. Now, as I'm making chains, you're going to notice it looks kind of like a braid. Okay. And each one of these braids counts for 1 chain. So if I look at my work here that I've created, and that's what we call it work, we count the V's or the braids. Okay. So it's really referred to as V's. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's it. The one that's on my hook right now, which is the loop, is not counted as a chain yet. Not until I pull through and it creates a V. Okay. So I've got 8 on here right now, and we'll get used to counting them, or you can physically count them as you do them. Now, the goal here, now they're not perfect. I'm not going to say that they're perfectly the same size, but they're right around the same size. As you're learning here, the tendency for these to get larger and smaller is really great, and it just takes practice, okay? It's going to take time. Watching this video once, or in this couple minutes that we've looked at chains, is not going to be enough for you to feel, comfortable. So what I encourage you to do is pull apart, okay? Didn't work out that good, okay? Do a slip knot. You're going to do this a number of times. I would guess you're going to do it 4, 5, 10 times possibly. Put your hook in, pull your fingers out, pull the strands, and then snug up with the tail. Then we're going to put our yarn around, grab kind of curl our fingers in, middle finger and our thumb in the front, and we're going to yarn over, twist, turn, and pull through. Yarn over, twist, turn, pull through. Make sure this loop gets back onto the larger part of the barrel. That sets the size so that your stitches are going to be more even. It can't be loose like this. It can't be like this. It's got to be the size of the barrel. And that's where you pull and kind of, and push between these two. Yarn over, twist through your loop. Yarn over, twist through your loop. Yarn over, twist through your loop. Okay? So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains. 6 chains, 7 chains, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you just keep going. I encourage you to just keep doing this until you really start to feel comfortable. There's a lot going on here. You're holding the yarn over here and you're trying to keep it, steady. You're holding your needle over here and you're yarning over, you're twisting, you're pulling through. This takes repetition and practice, okay? And all I want you to do is create chains and just keep going. Now, when you start feeling comfortable, I usually go 1 or 2 and then I kind of creep up. And then when you start to feel comfortable and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to, go to the next step and I feel comfortable with chains and I've got some nice even stitches here, then you're ready for part 3. Okay. Part 3 is going to be looking at the single and double crochet stitches. And those are going to be the stitches that we use in this washcloth. Okay. So we've got a slip knot down. We're going to be working on chains right now. And then we're going to be looking at these stitches. All right. And so we're getting closer. We're getting closer. So work on your chain, work on your slip stitch, and come back when you're ready to part 3, where we're going to be looking at that single and double crochet stitch. Okay. If you found this helpful, please hit the like button. If you'd like to leave a comment, I'd love to hear from you. And also, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate you being here. Okay, see you in part 3.